Hi guys, super excited to be here to talk about the epic journey that you guys have been on to make the wagamama packaging more sustainable and with a lower carbon footprint. We'll start by introducing ourselves. I'm Alice, co-founder of earthrise, and we're a creative studio and production company focused on all things climate and culture. Jack, over to you.
Can't really top that introduction. I'm Jack, the other co-founder of earthrise Studio and a self-confessed fanboy of wagamama, so very excited to be here today.
I'm Jo. I'm the founder and creative director of Marama. We're a design and innovation agency, and yeah, we've been responsible for the design and innovation on the wagamama packaging.
Finally, I'm Kay. I'm customer director at wagamama. I look after all things related to brand, marketing, guest experience, and work really closely with the food team on menu innovation. And I've been exec sponsor on our packaging project.
It's been a 4-year journey to get here. You've had to become total experts in this massive theme of recycling, which is so complicated, so flawed in many ways. Tell us about this new updates.
It's so important for us to stay true to our ethos of nourishing modern society. So regardless of whether you are sitting on our benches enjoying a steaming bowl of ramen or whether you're at home, it's really important to make sure that we are providing that excellent kind of food experience for our guests. So our packaging plays a huge part for that. And of course, when you're trying to deliver kind of steaming bowls of ramen of anything from 15+ minutes, it poses a huge challenge for us. So ultimately we embarked on this kind of full project with a real desire and focus to find a more sustainable material. We started the project 4 years ago and it's been definitely a labour of love, but we've got there in the end, and ultimately we had the real ambition to tread more softly on the planet.
So I love getting a yasai katsu curry delivered straight to my door as much as the next guy, but it's hard not to notice when you open up the food the amount of packaging that comes with it, and it's the same with any takeaway business. What are some of the challenges you face with the current packaging you have?
We set out to really find this kind of true, all sustainable solution. Actually, we quickly kind of soon realised that it didn't exist, and the materials that we thought were more sustainable, like pulp-based and compostable materials, weren't from a kind of sustainability perspective. So essentially what we did was we looked, and I'm not exaggerating, at every material possible, and Jo will definitely vouch for that. And one of the things that we did was wanted to educate ourselves really in this space. So we engaged with the likes of wrap to kind of really get under the skin of what was the right direction that we should be moving kind of to. So as I said, we looked at all materials, and we soon got introduced to a material called CPET, which is made from 70% recycled materials. We had the kind of go-ahead from wrap and UK Recycling Association that the material itself was the best choice for us. Having a fully CPET solution with a CPET lid was a real challenge because the CPET lid itself, essentially, it was posing lots of challenges from a trial and testing perspective. So essentially we were faced with a really tough decision on the project. Do we continue to produce the current packaging that we are producing, or do we opt for kind of going live with our CPET base and our current polypropylene recyclable lid? And we decided to go for the latter, and I'm actually so pleased that we did, because ultimately, as we've seen on this project, we will be saving up to 300 tonnes of virgin plastic, which is equivalent of 8 million of our current wagamama bowls. And also it is, as you touched on, a real saving on carbon footprint perspective.
It's a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So wow, yeah. a food pun.
Exactly. So yeah, essentially we're on a journey. We've made a really positive step. We want to ensure we get to a fully kind of CPET solution, but we're really pleased with where we've got to on the project.
Amazing. Jo, a labour of love, she says. What do you think about that? How was it different to how you expected?
I think the thing about it is that, as Kay said, there is no sort of silver bullet when it comes to materials. It just has to arrive full and upright and in the right condition for someone to eat it. And there isn't another material other than plastic that can do that. Being able to transport the food in a way that is kind of wagamama standard when it arrives in the guest's table, then that's the most important thing. Second only, and to the sustainability sort of considerations. And I think the biggest challenge on the project was definitely managing expectations. And getting the right answers. It's when you speak to someone who works in plastics, they are massive advocates of plastics. When you speak to someone who works in card or pulp, they're massive advocates of card or pulp. So you have to sort of wade through the kind of contradictory information that you're receiving, and that's why working with bodies that are set aside from those particular, they're not salespeople, they work at RAP, they work within the kind of recycling infrastructure, then they can give you slightly more accurate information about what actually happens with materials in the UK. So obviously recycled plastic, which is not virgin, is made from existing plastic that's already out there, that's already been created. And the thing about CPET is, so CPET, PET being the same material that's used to make Coke bottles, Evian bottles, the kind of packaging that you use on a day-to-day basis, and you consider to be recyclable. This is essentially the same thing. So the C stands for crystalline, and that basically means that it's been treated in a certain way that it can withstand higher temperatures. But essentially, it's the same, fundamentally the same material, so it can be recycled in the same way. There's a lot of supermarkets out there that use this in their microwave meals, and you'll notice when you get, not that I eat that many of them, but when you take a microwave meal out of the microwave, it's very floppy, the plastic that it comes in the tray, and the idea being that you could eat it out the tray, but you'd put that onto a plate, and that would be how you'd eat it. Obviously, we can't have the same sort of soft and floppiness with a wagamama bowl, so there's a kind of backwards and forwards with the supplier over the last year to get to a stage where we've created the design that is a stable design, where any force that's applied top down when you're putting the lid on in restaurant, that it means the bowl kind of keeps its shape, keeps its sort of perfect form that we've created, and when it arrives to the guest, it stays looking like it does.
It's no easy feat.
I was just thinking that it's so unbelievably complicated.
There's absolutely tons of variables in everything. I mean, it was like every single tiny step, working with the ops team, working with the guests, considering how, we've got every size of delivery bag in our office, and we've been packing them and making sure that from the driver's perspective, it's also easy, so that it's just a better experience all round, not just not trying to compromise on anything for the sake of sustainability.
It's so interesting to hear the behind the scenes story, because as a consumer, when you get the packaging, you're like, why can't it just be sustainable? And having to understand all the things you have to take into account as a designer for it to stack well, for it to be delivered in the right way, for the food to be hot, suddenly makes me realize what a challenge it is. How important do you think is the role of design in creating a more sustainable world? Because the time we're in at the moment, everything has to be transformed, and designers are kind of at the forefront of that.
The power we have as designers to actually change the direction of a project to a better outcome from a sustainability perspective is huge. We're super, super conscious of every single detail. Absolutely down to the last radius, to the last widow on the on the graphics. It has to be perfect. But in order to do that, it has to be perfect for everybody. It can't just be perfect for one person. So the most kind of rewarding part of the project for me was when we went into restaurant and we watched them packing it, and the chefs were just like, it looks great. The food looks really good.
It's so interesting because I feel the challenge that you guys have gone through in this context is happening across the climate space. There are no perfect solutions, and it's literally requiring innovation. And for wagamama, it's coming at a cost, but I think what it's proving is that you're thinking long term instead of short term. What part of this are you most proud of?
One of the things that we touched on was just around how misleading material labelling can be. And I think that what we've found is, of course, there isn't going to be this absolutely kind of perfect solution. But one of the bits that as we worked through the process again and worked really closely with UK Recycling Association, we found that, of course, there was something like 300 councils managing waste and about 39 different ways to dispose of that waste. And unfortunately, a proportion of waste will be kind of either exported or incinerated, resulting in kind of pollution and carbon emission production. So one of the elements that we have looked at, of course, we've looked at from an upstream perspective, but also from a downstream point of view, we are going to be launching Bowl Bank, which is essentially a bowl return scheme, and that will be rolling out with our new packaging. And essentially how it works is guests will come into restaurants, they will return the bowls in return for a free side on us. and they will be picked up and commercially recycled. So that for me in itself is something that I'm really proud of, because there aren't many kind of brands or organisations within the industry that are doing similar things. So that's something that I'm really proud of. And I guess from an overarching business perspective, we have been really guided by a Japanese philosophy which is at the core of our business called Kaizen. So it's all around kind of continuous improvement, so being better tomorrow than we are today. And ultimately, as we've touched on, it's so easy to make kind of short-term, quick-win decisions within this space. But actually for us, this has been small decisions that have contributed to big change. And we've kind of invested as a business, we've educated ourselves, we've engaged with industry experts within this space. And ultimately what we want to do is essentially kind of tell our story and help spread the word. And ultimately we aren't perfect as a business, but we are absolutely on the journey to kind of do better for the environment and tread more softly on the planet.
Progress, not perfection. Bowl bank, would you do it?
Yeah, I want to dig more into this bowl bank. Bowl bank?
Bowl bank, yeah.
Bowl bank. So, okay, so let's just like talk it through. So I've had my yasai katsu curry, delicious, finished it off on my ramen or udon noodles. This is the virgin plastic piece.
Yes.
And this is the CPET.
And both are recyclable.
And both are recyclable.
Made from 70% recycled plastic, is polypropylene, but both are recyclable.
Will be CPET. It's a work in progress.
So that eventually will be the same as the bowl itself.
Yep.
And so I finish my meal, I wash it out,
yep.
and then someone comes to pick it up, or I walk it down.
So
to like
you go into a restaurant
Cool.
and you return the bowl, and essentially what will happen is you will kind of get a voucher for a free side on us the next time you come back. Essentially what will happen is a business will come in, pick up the clean packaging, and essentially will be commercially recycled. So we're giving it its best chance of it not going to landfill. So a really important initiative for us, and actually looking at the full process overall.
Amazing. And do you think that's part of the puzzle? So obviously you've invested all this time in designing, improving the design. Do you think the sort of systemic element of it, like the way that we recycle, needs to change as well? Like, is there changes that has to happen on a sort of governmental top-down level as well as bottom-up?
Absolutely, and I think for us it's just really important that we did look at the full picture, because we can't just look at one half without forgetting the other half. So we are incredibly proud of where we've got to from a packaging perspective, and actually the bowl bank just gives us an opportunity to make sure that we are kind of seeing it through to the end of life.
I think one of the biggest issues is that there is such a variety of materials, such a variety of approaches from different brands, different companies, and what it means is that there's lots of different materials ending up obviously together in your recycling bin, and separating them all out is incredibly difficult. The reason that something as simple as a clear water bottle or Coke bottle gets recycled is because they are really easily identified. The thing about the packaging industry, especially in food, is that everyone has a slightly different approach. And in some cases that's warranted. If you're in sort of a street food vendor, then it does make sense to use a compostable packaging over a plastic recyclable piece of packaging, because on the street you'll find that there's not a huge number of recycling bins, and quite often they are contaminated because people kind of are careless and they end up just all getting collected together and put into general waste. And so it makes more sense to use a compostable piece of packaging in that instance. But in something for this project, it was completely ruled out very early on as being impossible to make something that seals and works with a compostable piece of packaging. And also, what does then compostable mean? It's very confusing for customers, for guests at home to know what to do with that. Like, can they put it in their compost bin, or is it only industrially compostable? If it's industrially compostable, then do I put it in my, like, where does it go? And then so, it has to eventually, essentially it is going to landfill. Like, that is the only sort of route that most of that compostable packaging goes. And so then nothing's recaptured. The thing about this project is, and something we're trying to push for in across all of our projects, is this really bringing circular design strategies into play. If we can recapture as much material as possible, then we aren't creating new material. And if that circular, that circularity is vital for us as we move forwards on creating anything that we're thinking not only about the beginning of life, but we're thinking about the end of life. There's nothing stopping this bowl becoming a new bowl, except for the infrastructure that's challenging that process. Bowl bank is a way to sort of help get it closer to that. And obviously, I think something that would be great for other brands to kind of consider is like, could they also move to CPET packaging? Can they also adopt these materials? Wagamama paving the way, especially if once we've nailed the CPET lid with the CPET base, with fully PET solution, like that technology then is there. That ability to create something, to do those two things is possible for other brands as well. And I don't think Wagamama will have any issues with other brands sort of adopting, not the design, that's for Wagamama, but the process and the materials, because if all takeaway packaging just came in CPET packaging, it would all just be collected and would become new CPET packaging.
So it is really important that these innovations are happening and pioneered by the private sector, because I think, as you've learned, the system is very, very much flawed. But I feel post-pandemic, and with the pace of change that's happening, more hopeful than ever that we can change our behaviour. We've proven that. We absolutely can, but it's changing our attitude to nature, to waste, to our environment and to each other ultimately.
And I think the thing is like, once you kind of realise what you actually have there, it makes you think more about what it is, but also how flawed it is.
What I'm hearing here, which is so inspiring, is that with those creative design limitations, actually it forces you to find new opportunities. That doesn't all have to be about sacrifice, and indeed, like, this is mostly about innovating and creating new opportunities and creating ultimately better packaging for the chefs.
I think what I find so endlessly fascinating about being in this space and living in this time is, yes, on the one hand, there's this like exponential curve of climate and ecological destruction that we're all well aware of in the media every day. But there's also this competing exponential curve of innovation and new ideas and solutions that are coming out. And I find that so endlessly fascinating and stimulating. And I wonder if you would both have one piece of advice, maybe Jo, from your perspective, for like designers wanting to get more involved in sustainability, and then also Kay for businesses, but maybe we start with you, Jo.
I think the biggest challenge when I started my journey in sort of more sustainable design and trying to push the boundaries and understanding of what that is that it feels like a huge, huge mountain to climb. And ultimately, I guess it is, but the thing is that it's just one step in front of the other. It's just starting by asking questions, talking to friends who are also creatives or not creatives, just about what does it mean, what do they think is more sustainable, just starting to kind of unpick kind of what people's feelings are about this, but also then speaking to experts and trying to sort of balance the difference of opinions that you've been receiving. Because it's very, very easy, as it is with anything about design, to find the answers that you're looking for and not the answers that are actually the accurate kind of true answers. And so yeah, there's no black and white, and that's really, really hard to get our heads around. But the thing about design is that nothing's black and white. Everything is slightly, certain things work better than others, and you can see that through testing and through speaking to people. But actually we're very used to living in that world, and so I think we're really well placed to start to just push this further and find solutions and not see it as a negative and a compromise, and it feels like a cupboard that every time you open it, it screams at you and you just close it and you're just like, okay, I'm not going to deal with that. But you know what? You just open the door and just let it come to you. And as soon as you start it, you can't stop. It's like I'm addicted to finding out more and more about the right thing to do, and it makes me feel so good.
I think for us, kind of from an overall business perspective, it was just really important to kind of educate ourselves and actually hear the feedback, the good and the bad. And to be honest, for me, that's been absolutely key and crucial for this project and where we've ended up with our current packaging. And as you say, there's going to be kind of work in the background on materials and improvements in that space, and we'll make sure that we kind of educate ourselves and stay on top of the trends. And I think it's just making sure that it's just this continuous focus on being more sustainable as a business.
I, for one, am going to be taking my bowl back to the bank so I can get my Bang Bang cauliflower for free.
Nice.
Don't know about you, Alice?
You can also use it as a lunchbox. My colleague religiously uses a wagamama bowl as a lunchbox.
Nice. Yeah, endlessly recyclable.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for empowering us with the tools to do better and be better. Really excited for the future, and we'll be stay tuned on the journey.